Daniel Cormier here on the Rich Eisen Show. I was going to ask you where Adesanya versus Romero fell on that scale of adjectives, and you place it in the weird. Why do you place it in the weird, sir?
Man, did you see? I mean, if you watched the fight, you saw the very first minute and a half, Yoel just kind of stood there with his hands up. And he's so frightening that he almost froze Izzy without even doing or throwing anything. And then, honestly, it just kind of stayed that way. It was one of those fights where you kind of were anticipating the explosion, the fireworks, and it just never came. You know, you got 25 minutes of essentially cat and mouse. You know, and it was just weird, man. It was a weird fight. It reminds me of a fight way back in the day. Anderson Silva fought in Saudi Arabia, and it was one of those nights that just did not turn out to be what everyone expected.
So there are some who might be holding Adesanya to account for that fight being weird. Where do you stand on that subject?
I don't. You know, Rich, when you fight Yoel Romero, a guy that has knocked out so many people, a guy that has really fought in that same exact way, but finds ways to end fights with one action, you cannot think that Izzy would just go in there and be reckless. You know, I've never seen anyone do it. And he did what he had to do. I mean, this guy's the champion. He's a guy that if you're willing to engage, you know, he'll give you your type of fight. But Yoel Romero is not a guy that you want to be out there being reckless with. He's just too dangerous. The risk is not worth the danger that it takes to go out there and just be reckless.
We met Adesanya last year, and twice he came by in our studio, and he lit it up. Like we could have turned the lights off, and his energy and his personality could have powered the entire studio. I love meeting him. I love seeing what he does. He's a showman. He's an entertainer. But how far do you think he can go in his career, Daniel?
You know, Rich, I think that he can be as big a star as we had in the UFC. You know, some guys just have it. You know, it like you said, it just radiates off of them. You just see it from the moment he walked into the octagon. He essentially marked his territory, and you saw a young kid who had never done anything become a champion in like a year, and that doesn't happen very often in the UFC. And I think that's just one of those nights. I mean, you know, Anderson Silva, it did not really affect his legacy having that night in Saudi Arabia, and I think that's going to be the case for Izzy. I think he's just going to move forward, and his next fight is guaranteed to deliver because the guy he's fighting, Paulo Costa, has never been in a fight like you saw Izzy have last week.
So how do you handicap that one right now, first blush?
Oh, that's a close fight, man. I think Paulo Costa, he's a guy that says, forget the risk in fighting Yoel Romero, and he just went right at him. It was the same night that I fought over in Anaheim, and it was a explosive fight. But it's hard to pick against the champ right now, but I do believe that this is the most real challenge that he's had since becoming the champion or winning the interim championship. I know his fight with Kelvin Gastelum was super close, but, I mean, this guy's a beast, man, out of Brazil, and it's going to be a fun one.
Well, in terms of his plans, he couldn't have been Adesanya could not have been more graphic in his description of what he intends to do to John Jones, and not only do to John Jones, he knows exactly where he wants it to happen. He wants it to happen in the new Raiders Stadium, and he wants it to happen next summer. And he's envisioning this. I mean, he could not have been more point blank about it. What do you think of that scenario, DC?
I mean, you know, big goals, right? You know, the last guy we saw to pretty much try to call his shot or call his shot was Conor McGregor. And look at what happened to Conor. But, I mean, I just think that Izzy needs to really stay focused on what he has to do. You know, I get it. You know, you start looking at the big fish. You start looking at the big picture when you become a champion and defend the championship. But I think the challenge that's in front of him right now, it's so dangerous, it's so big, that he has to focus, or he's going to find himself in over his head with Paulo Costa. This guy is so freakishly scary. I mean, if you could see a picture of him, Rich, you'd be like, yeah, I would never look past this guy. Paulo Costa's a beast, and I think Izzy needs to focus on that. And when the time comes and him and Jones fight, it's going to be fun.
But you can
right now, he's got business.
You can understand the animus he has towards Jones. Daniel.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's easy to dislike John Jones. I mean, it's not hard. And Jones has really made Izzy a target. And I think that Adesanya is one of those new age guys, Rich, that, you know, he does not like challenges and he does not pull any punches when it comes to fight building.